We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
The fallout from Fani Willis's case against Donald Trump in Georgia continues, and we are lucky to be joined by somebody who has followed the story possibly even closer than myself, which is quite unbelievable when I tell you about the hours I've invested into this particular case, is Mr. Scott DeCosenza, excellent host of the Uprising podcast, Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor, and a man who knows pretty much everything there is to know about the ins and outs of this case. Let's put him on the spot. Hi, Scott.
Some of the things that I have to plow through in order to get conversant with it, to discuss with you, are a slog and deserve greater compensation and plaudits for me for having to do it. This was it is like a soap opera. I encourage people to watch the many, many hours of testimony themselves so they can enjoy all that's befolded. But it's almost like no matter how long we talk about it, the breadth and scope of the dramas that have occurred during this case won't really be revealed. But I'm happy to try to get through it as much as we can.
Yeah, so for me, the one of the latest things is I still can't get my head quite around the 2 days of testimony that were given by Nathan Wade, the prosecutor in the case, and Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA, which covers obviously Fulton County, which covers Atlanta, which is the office bringing the case. But their testimony, it was, I didn't realize, Scott, that all I had to do to avoid any legal impunity was to shout at the lawyer who was questioning me and call him a liar, and then I get preferential treatment. I wasn't aware that was how the legal system works, Scott.
So you're referring, of course, to Fani Willis's disgraceful display on the witness stand during her trial her trial, actually, that's a funny way to say it. We'll get back to that. During the hearing in Judge McAfee's courtroom. And to be clear, her behavior was disgraceful. It would have been disgraceful for any witness. For an attorney, you add the real disgraceful moniker to it, that she is the current occupant of the office of district attorney in that jurisdiction, Mark, and it's beyond the pale. I can't even tell you how racist it is to hear from so many in the United States of America that this is like a celebratory or laudatory moment, her pushing back in the way that she did. You do not exhibit a contemptuous attitude towards the proceedings or the people in a court of law and expect to walk away from it. And if she wasn't the district attorney and she wasn't a black woman, she probably would have been held in contempt of court and either had to spend some hours or a night in jail or pay a significant fine, because Judge Scott McAfee is being very lenient. And I can tell you this, one of the things, I wrote about this for LibertyNation.com and wrote about Judge McAfee, and I praised his performance. And there is, within his excessive leniency, there is some praise there. And I'll do a sports analogy, which I think is probably easy for people to understand. I don't know how you do over there with your odd sports and if this is a cricket thing or not. But in America, for instance, you can have a referee that kind of keeps things close to the book, right? Calls a tight game, or you can have a ref that kind of lets the guys play and kind of lets things be a little bit more loose. And both of those two tracks are acceptable to all who play. But what you can't have is a ref that calls things tight for one side and loose for another, right? And Judge McAfee, even though he lets the team play loose, as it were, he doesn't waver and change for one side or another. So at least he's consistent with letting the people hang themselves, as it were, and not demanding respect for the court like I think he should.
I'd like to come back on that, because I obviously am not familiar with jurisprudence of the United States nor what is expected. But one thing that really stood out to me, so much so that I commented just after watching it, I was making a gag to somebody, that the defense attorney for Nathan Wade and Fani Willis was absolutely superb. I just had no idea why he was sitting in the judge's chair. And I'll bring up a specific incident there.
I didn't get that, by the way, but
so there was one point where Mr. Wade was being questioned, and the lawyer doing the questioning at the time
And
said
Mr. Wade, for people who don't know,
is
is
the
Ms.
prosecutor.
Willis's appointed choice to run the prosecution of Donald Trump and his RICO co-defendants, and also her former paramour.
Yes. So he was being questioned, and the lawyer asked a question that required a yes or no answer. And the judge said, haven't we already covered this ground? And the lawyer made the case. I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, well, here's the thing, Your Honor. If he answers yes, that means he perjured himself before. If he answers no, that means that the charges against him are factual. So I just need him to answer yes or no. And the judge says, I think we've already covered this, and forced him to move on. At that point, the lawyer said, well, then I have no more questions, and gave way to another chair. And I thought that was just, I mean, sure, I'm looking at it from a journalistic point of view, but also from somebody who's enjoying the soap opera. And it's like it comes to a cliffhanger ending here. And
Right.
I want that yes or no. I want to see which way this flips. And I'm denied it by the judge. That is, it may be good jurisprudence, but it was very poor television, in my opinion.
The only thing, I haven't seen a single item of law and ruling on the law that, or admissibility that the judge has made, that I would disagree with. Just the tenor and attitude that he allows in his courtroom. By the way, exhibited both by witnesses for the prosecution of Donald Trump and also by defense counsel. I've seen behavior by them that I thought was totally unacceptable in the manner they were questioning a witness. Now, I would tell you this, though. Let's say that Fani Willis was shut down the first moment she had, kind of exhibited her sassy attitude of contempt for the proceedings. America would have been denied the benefit of seeing her. In other words, you could make the case, Mark, and I'm not suggesting that this was Judge McAfee's motivation at all. I have no reason to believe that it is. But just in my analysis, you could make the case that the best thing to happen for disqualifying her is letting people see the emotion and how it's not a clinical prosecution. It's not about the facts and the law. And what it's about is this woman with an emotional problem who doesn't take direction well and won't adhere to the lines of the law well, and maybe in fact perjured herself along with her lover to accomplish her ends.
That's something I wanted to follow up. So there's some possible. Mr. Wade seems to be in more trouble than Miss Willis at present. Could you go into that a little bit for us?
Well, there are extra things to document his lies, basically at present. So part of the whole controversy concerns when they started their romantic relationship.
Sure. If I could just make that clear to everybody, if
this is
she appointed him,
this is one of the key.
Yeah. If she appointed him,
let me, if I might, let me actually fully set the table. So what happened in the case so far is that one of Mr. Trump's co-defendants, Mr. Roman, said that the whole indictment should be thrown out because of it was sort of poisoned in its inception because of this inappropriate relationship between Mr. Wade and Ms. Willis, that she basically is his sugar mama and appointed him to do this prosecution so that her boyfriend could benefit, and also that he could then shower and return that benefit in terms of lavish trips and gifts on Ms. Wade.
Yeah, so it all comes down to the date when their relationship started, which is
if that happened after her appointment of him, they're on much better ground than if it happened prior to it.
Yeah, although I do believe the questioning lawyers asked her did she know that it was inappropriate according to Georgia County statutes, which of course the judge then said, well, we're not covering Georgia County statutes, and shut him down again on that one. But
exactly. By the way, you got to remember, there are a million. You think of like somebody walking down a busy street and there are a million distractions to get from point A to point B, and the judge's job, without pride or prejudice or caring, which way the outcome goes, is about getting that delivering that end goal. And it's appropriate for him to eschew and mandate, kind of casting aside all extraneous things that an attorney might wish to add in. So getting back to your question as to why is perhaps Mr. Wade has more jeopardy attached to his actions, is because of in his divorce proceedings, he filed some paperwork that indicates in an additional way that the relationship started in a way that he then swore under testimony that it didn't. So it's another thing. He almost certainly, Mark, will be subject to a disciplinary hearing on his law license, and it wouldn't surprise me to learn that he was eventually disbarred as a result of what's happened here. And perhaps that Ms. Willis will share that fate as well. But it's a little premature for her for that.
So the documents that Mr. Wade allegedly perjured himself with, those aren't available to the public. They'll be seen, I believe it's called in camera, which means
perjury is a judgment. I'm not alleging. I'm saying the man perjured himself. To be clear, I other people may say that it's alleged. He filed a thing that said one thing, and then he testified to another thing. Now that could be an accident if you believe it's an accident. He hasn't said it's an accident. I think that it's funny because we do want to be very careful because of libel and defamation laws. That we don't cast. I can't imagine a case where this isn't true. I'm comfortable saying that the man perjured himself.
And the remedies for that are that he will be reviewed and either given some kind of stiff penalty, disbarred, or cut some kind of deal. Is that about right?
The more impactful consequence, perhaps, to that is that Donald Trump's criminal indictment is dismissed.
You're jumping to C. I was trying to make from A to B.
So potentially, So what I suspect is that there's probably a Republican attorney in Georgia who's motivated against these folks politically, who's already filed, perhaps. I don't mean to suggest that I know about this happening.
Sure.
I just mean it's a big enough place. There's enough actors in there. If this happened in a place where I was licensed to practice law, I might consider doing it, as any lawyer might when they witness such activity. And then if that happens, then I'm not a Georgia lawyer, but the licensing authority, the Board of Law Examiners, or whoever it's called in Georgia, would have a disciplinary hearing and examine the case. And perjury in this type of manner, right, to benefit oneself. It's not like lying to a court is one thing. That's a little bit different than perjury, because it's not a sworn statement. So even if you just lie to a court, so if you say to the judge who wants to start the trial on Monday that you can't because you have a prepaid vacation that starts on Monday, and maybe it wasn't actually prepaid, that alone is a big thing, to make a misrepresentation to a court as a lawyer. But if you then swear on that statement, right? Mm-hmm. I swear the above is true and to the best of my, well, that's another order of severity that I expect the bar will eventually say, oh, we can't abide this. And of course, it's the most public. It's not like, some quiet thing that could go away, right? So,
well, that would be interesting to follow, to see if the actions of Miss Willis and Mr. Wade are eventually the downfall, not of Mr. Trump, but of the case against Mr. Trump and his co-defendant, specifically Mr. Mike Roman, I guess, would be the first domino in this particular chain. And we'll be coming back with some more of Donald Trump's legal trials, which seem to dominate the headlines nowadays, with Mr. Scott DeCosenza after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.